Hello, I'm Steph Morrison from the Canadian Schoolhouse, and I am here to talk today a little bit about overcoming challenges. So, overcoming challenges that we all have with our kids, no matter whether there may be a real identifiable issue that you can put a label on, or sometimes kids just have their preferences, or their, I don't even want to say preferences, I don't want to give my kids too much leeway if they're listening in the background, but sometimes kids just their personality, or their they'll love math and they won't like writing, or they're like some types of writing, but there's other types of writing where they just cannot stand. Um, and so those are challenges that we need to overcome, because they need a certain understanding of math. I feel like I've been talking about this almost every live stream I've done lately, about math and the challenges in our home learning with math. As actually both kids, but for different reasons. And so we, as parents, let's even not even talk about the education part, but just as parents, we are really good at identifying how we can help our kids overcome challenges. So now let's put in the education part and think about that, how we can help them overcome challenges, how we can actually overcome challenges, because sometimes it's the way we're dealing with them. So we were actually going to have a guest on today, and something came up with her, unfortunately, and she is not able to join us. But I wanted to share a few things that she shared in the Homeschool Minute. So that is a weekly email that gets sent out with all kinds of homeschooler encouragement, news, inspiration. And this was back in the fall that it was sent. So I'm actually just going to read a little bit from there, and then I'm going to comment, because I have a bit of this experience with my kids, especially one that went through public school. So this one is from the Homeschool Minute back in October of 2022, and so this link will probably take you right to Alexandra's little article that she put in there. But this whole, so the theme, so that's what the whole school minute is. Every week it's on a different theme that is relevant to homeschoolers. So this theme is specifically on helping students with processing difficulties. So go through this whole, if you're dealing with that, or maybe you will deal with that. Like, it's better to know before you're right in the thick of things. But just go through all these articles in here, and all these resources, all these different companies that are there to help us as parents educate really, really well, because what we want is a quality education for our kids. And it's the reason that most of us chose to homeschool. And if that wasn't your choice to begin with, uh, I think it's a reason that people continue to homeschool, because they see that you, as a parent, you can provide that customized, individualized education that they will not be able to get in any school system, private or public. And the quality of education that you can get with the resources that you can get, as far as curriculum and any other type of learning materials and approaches to learning, is by far a, a superior quality, again, than anything that they can get within the school system. So Alexandra, she talks a little bit here about dealing with that processing difficulties. And at the age of 15, she was diagnosed with a autism spectrum disorder, which was a little bit helpful, right? Sometimes helpful to know what the issue is. It's, there's lots of people that specifically work in the homeschooling field as well. But lots of different people that work with kids to maybe identify and maybe put a label on it, but more importantly, as a parent, give you the guidance to how do you overcome the challenges that your children need to deal with. And so she wrote here just a few suggestions for teachers, parents, siblings, about dealing with kids with processing difficulties and just difficulties overall in whatever they may be learning. And she mentions here about don't raise your voice. And I think about that with my older son. He's now 27. So he is way beyond the schooling age, but he is still learning. And I actually think he has learned significantly more since he's got out of school, because he's just learned in his own way. He's even big on documentaries. He probably watches more documentaries than me. He's really the things he's learned has been so much more, because in that school system he's kind of put in that box, and he was identified, and it was a processing disorder. It's something about what he could output on paper, right? And he was actually given all kinds of accommodations that actually made him not overcome that. It was compensating, and it allowed him to compensate more than overcome what he was dealing with, as far as how his brain work, right? We're all unique learners. So these are just a few little quick tips. So don't raise your voice, because it can be frustrating, right? Dealing with your children, especially, it can be frustrating when they're just not getting it and you see it plain as day. So when speaking to a young person, it's best to kneel or sit so your eyes are at the same level. And don't be too cheerful when assisting with a problem. As Alexandra says, for me, it was disingenuous. It was, so don't be, the tone is kind of what I get from that in my experience as a parent. Like, my tone means so much. And not that I would necessarily say that I've ever been too cheerful, but sometimes my tone is not helpful. So remember that a lot about your tone, your tone, and whether that's relating to the way they are understanding things. So I'm going to share a little bit more about my older son. So I think one of the things that, again, he went through the public school system all the way except 1 year. I actually pulled him out in grade 5 because it was all the way since kindergarten. It was just behavior problem after behavior problem through school. It was really hard for him to learn in that situation. So that came out, he would do very little work. He would scribble all over paper. He would, if he was pushed hard enough, he would get to the point where he would completely retreat and he would be underneath a desk, because that's what he felt was a safe spot, right? That didn't happen all the time, but regardless, behavior problems came out because he was first forced to learn in a way, and his head wasn't understanding that. I didn't know that then, like I know it now. I didn't know that then, but now everything that I have learned about how the brain works and how each of our kids, how each of us learn in different ways, I know that was the issue back then. So I took him out for 1 year. So is kind of his grade 6 year. I actually took him out. He never went back to school after that March break. So it was a little bit of grade 5 and grade 6. And then, just as circumstances were, and I just wasn't feeling confident enough at the time, I guess, I put him back into school. And then fast forward just a couple years, I had 2 more boys. So both my husband and I were pretty determined that we were not going to put them in school. So I was very determined that wasn't going to happen. I was determined in making that work in our family, and making that work financially. So that's sometimes the trickier part, right? So I was very determined to make that work, and I have made it work. My boys have never gone to school, and they have done all their education at home. And I would say I had both my boys better educated than my 27-year-old, because he doesn't really. So my older boy does not really care about going back and learning how to spell properly, but his spelling is really bad. It's not great, even at this point. And he doesn't care enough to go and make sure he's spelling right. There's actually so many accommodations for not knowing how to spell in our world today. So it is, it's kind of easy enough for him to not go back and spell. Learn the basics of putting words together and knowing words. So with my 2 boys now, I've got them much better educated, and they're not super happy to learn all the time, but learning is a very different experience for them. And I find that they would have the exact same processing disorders. So for my son, I'm not sure if I said that exactly what it was before, but His so he was labeled with ADHD with an emphasis on output, so processing output. You're welcome, Nathan Higgins. um, so how did your oldest eventually hit upon what he might like to do, knowing that he had his struggles? Actually, that's thanks for asking that, because that's he was given a great opportunity by the grace of God, I think. I'm going to put it as that. So actually, as soon as he was done high school, he moved several hours away, but he moved and lived in with my dad, and my dad was a plumber, and so he went into plumbing. He actually never really did go and get the apprenticeship, but he worked with my dad for a number of years, and he's done a few different things then, but he, just picking up the plumbing trade, what he knows now, he still does some stuff because he's not licensed. He doesn't do any big stuff, but there's still lots of plumbing work that he does. He lives in cottage country, so he's done a lot of that, opening and closing cottages, but changing pumps, and like he actually is, he learned a lot about that. And I think for him, it wasn't necessarily, my dad just gave him that opportunity. So his grandpa just, gave him that opportunity to come and do that. And it was a wonderful experience for him, because I don't really know, I'm not really sure what he would have done. He's also gone to get welding, so he took some program where he got welding tickets, not the whole shebang, whatever. I don't know all the details for welding to get the tickets, but I know he did a partial course in college to get welding training, and then he's just learned other things in the construction trade. He works in a marina right now. He does some stuff with building of docks and working on the engines, and that he's done a bit. So he's really he's actually, and although they aren't biologically related, he is so much like my husband that it's funny. It's funny how God put that together, right? He put exactly the way that my oldest son is, and how he learns. And my husband had the same experience, which I think is why it was so easy for him to be like, yeah, we'll homeschool. I don't want my kids in education. He had a horrible experience in education, never did get a diploma, and really more or less dropped out of school at, I think, grade 10. Like, I think he might have went back, but he just started working factories and stuff like that. And much later in life, he was able to determine more things that he wants to do. He's still determining that, just like I am. So that learning, and it really is, I see my two boys having that same type of learning. If they were in the school system, they would be identified with something for sure, probably some form of ADHD. I don't know where all that identification goes. And just to say that I'm not against going and see. I think it's great. There's lots of educational consultants. We've had a couple maybe just one interview with Diane Geerlinks, and she is somebody, she lives in Ontario, but she works all throughout Canada. If you're an HSLDA member, you can actually have a consultation with her at no cost. And lots of times it's just a one-off consultation. You can have a consultation every year at no cost. That's just comes with the membership. But you can also see and check out Diane. And maybe you can even, Christine, maybe you can even put that. I thought of that too, and I didn't add it in our notes, about putting a link to Diane's. You can either do it to her website. I know she's got a group on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you might want to check that out. It is, I believe it's called Homeschooling Your Unique Learner. And then it's Geerlinks. I'm not sure exactly what I think Christine's going to be able to find it, but it's Geerlinks Educational Therapy or Educational Consulting or something like that. So Christine will pop that in there at some point when she gets that link. And I think it's really valuable to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable about how kids learn. And Diane has a really great approach. You can tell just by her title of her group, Homeschooling Your Unique Learner, that she really honors the way different people learn. It's not I don't like to call it a disorder or a disability, the way that that kids learn. It's just the way we learn. Thank you, Christine, for putting that in there. And we want to honor that. And one of the great ways that we can actually honor the way they learn and help them overcome that challenge is about focusing on their interests. So I think with Alexandra, I don't know her story for sure. We were gonna get to know a little bit about that in this interview, but I wondered if she always loved art. So she's an author, and she has written a few books, children's books. She's illustrated them and written them, and I think that's pretty awesome. So I thought that was pretty awesome, just as an encouragement for parents that think, oh, like my kids are just, there's no way they're gonna get to a point. Here's a published author who manages, who has her own business, The Amazing Artist Online, and I know she gets help from, I believe it's parents and possibly others as well, with her business, but getting to the point of being that published and the work that goes beyond that. She goes around and speaks different places as well. She does her book readings in that at different places. So it's a real encouragement to see people, to see kids that really seem to have a really hard time learning and then go on to do something and so something to do something that they really enjoy. Because I really believe, in fact, I just know that God has instilled a purpose in every single one of us. And it's our job as parents to uncover that purpose for our kids. And that purpose comes out by what they're interested in. And sometimes we need to work with that a little bit. Like sometimes we need to expose them to different things. And really, it's homeschooling. Doesn't that just lend the most to be able to do that? Just expose them to different things in the world to find out what really clicks with them and what their deep interests are. I can certainly identify lots of things with my boys now. I'm not going to put them in that box of saying this is what they're going to do. I mean, they are 12 and 15, so definitely even my 15-year-old at the age he is now, I can really start to see certain directions he might go, and that's just one of the things I encourage you to do is have those conversations with your kids and get them to think. I really force my kids to have opinions and to express them appropriately, but to really have opinions, because like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Now that question is pretty open-ended, but what kind of things are you interested in? That might be one question. Depending, some kids really are like, I don't know, nothing. And that's not really true. That's just not human nature. That's not how God made us, to not have interests. So as parents, we need to work on that a little bit, and we need to softly work on that a little bit. We need to, whether they want to or not, you need to expose them to, let's say, different musical instruments. Whether they want to or not, you need to expose them to different other creative stuff. So doing stuff with working with like painting different things, right? So working with different artistic approaches, opportunities, right? That music and art and drama isn't just an extracurricular. Like it can be. You can consider it that way. But those things are really something that our kids can dabble in and see, is that something that's, and it doesn't have to be what they do for work. It could be just what their hobbies are. And we need to give them that too, because that overcomes lots of different obstacles when they have a really hard time with math, but they know they're gonna be able to do another subject, either in their formal learning day or just for fun. That helps get through that more difficult stuff. And we always want to be challenging our kids. And if there was one of the things, if I was somebody to feel a lot of like, oh, if I could go back and change things, and everything is exactly as it should be. But thinking back to how I parented my son that was in school most of the time. And I didn't really have a real handle on what to do for him learning wise, right? I was just as frustrated because I didn't know. And after I armed myself with all kinds of information, not that it made me a perfectly patient and understanding mom, all the time. God's still working with me on that one. Um, that that I can I look back and I see that I really wish I would have spent more time even while even he's going to school, and I really wish that I would have spent more time just having conversations about what he wanted to do, having getting him exposed to more different things and different um, subjects, just really exploring those things more. Exploring, and like biographies actually are a really great way. I think that's an excellent way when you start reading about other people and what they've done. Your kids can get really inspired by that and think that's the thing. Like they just need that little spark, and they could really go with whatever that is, and you find out, hey, that kind of thing really interests them. They're talking about this story, this book, this movie, right, that's about a certain topic, a certain area, and they're just talking about it all the time, and that is something that you can use in their life just as their parent. I mean, really, I like to say that education is just an extension of parenting. It's not outside of our parenting role. Education is something that we should be doing as a parent, right? And a few centuries ago, that was completely the parents' responsibility, and parents took that on quite fully. I won't get into what doesn't work with the public school system, and how that's not really a great quality education, but I want to focus more on the fact that as a parent, we know our children best, and we can adjust their education, which I have done a lot throughout the 15 years. Uh, that I have changed things up just because I see either what my kids have been interested in and how I can use their interest to maybe help them in subjects that they aren't so strong in. And so I think I want to right now, I'm going to uh, have my kids. So they need to write a story. And it's an assignment brought to you by the Canadian Schoolhouse, the Creative Writing Roundup. If you haven't heard about that yet, you can go to the link. There you go. Thank you, Christine. So go to our homepage there. You'll see the information. Just scroll down a little bit for the Creative Writing Roundup, and sign up for the emails that get there. We send them out Thursday. And if you sign up, you will get the Hey Mama Planner for free. We're launching that mid-May, and only those that are signed up for the Creative Writing Roundup will get that email with the coupon codes you can use to get the Smart Mama Planner for free. So this is a very cool digital planner, and just each year they just add more and more for that. It's just technologically, I don't know, cool. I should have had some things in there that are about the planner. But just there's so much you can do with it. Obviously, print off pages that work for you, but it can be digitally and sitting somewhere digitally, and just the way that it lays out and how you can spawn pages and how you can work within the document itself within the planner is pretty cool. So. But what we really want you to do is sign up for that Creative Writing Roundup and have their interests of something in history. So our theme this year, so we've done this 2 years now. Our theme this year is on historical. So writing on stories from the past. I'm sorry, that title is just. I was going to say historical fiction, and in general it is, but it doesn't have to be fiction. It can be your kids can write on something that is factual. They could write a poem that has a little spin on it of something of history, something in the past, right? There's so many, pretty much any writing genre you can think of, you can your kids can write on that. So you can also submit something that they wrote from the past. They wrote from the past, so not too far from the past, but if they wrote something a couple months ago, they can submit that. And what we're going to do is we're going to put all these little stories and pieces of writing that we get from homeschoolers, and parents can submit to homeschooling families. So these little bits of writing on stories about the past we're going to put it all in an ebook, and then we'll just have it available. It's going to be a book that we'll just have on our site, and we'll let people know about that. But when you're signed up for that, we'll send it out to you if you submitted a story to it. And it's not there, it's going to be on a page, and we'll probably just send you the link to the page, and then you can then just download that freely on that page and share that with your family to download that, and share that with your friends to download that. And it is just going to be a compilation of homeschoolers works of writing. So use that. So what I'm doing with my kids, I'll just close off with how I've used this little creative writing roundup. So I told them they had to get a topic from the past, and it is coming in close. Like, I'm realizing that, and like, after I get off here, I think I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go right then, and like, okay, where are we with these stories? I don't think they're very far yet, because it closes April 30th. So we should have them in by April 30th. We're getting submissions until then. So we've been accepting submissions all month long, and doing some things on here. You can go back and look at some of our writing tips we've done, just short little videos of writing tips. And we'll have another one tomorrow, so Thursday at 7 p.m. No, that one will be a little early, actually, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be on doing a live. You'll, of course, be able to watch the recording, and you can see our little writing tips there. So we just want to encourage you, our homeschooling families, to write. And I would love to be able to write something and submit it. We'll see if I can swing that. I feel like I've got so much other writing I'm doing and needs to really get done. I may not put that in, but that, to me, that sounds fun. I used to love writing as a kid. And I do it a lot now. I just don't do fiction writing. So I would love to do some little fiction stories. So maybe I'll surprise myself, and God will carve out this little time and someday soon, and I'll get to write a story. But definitely my kids, I'm going to spend my time encouraging them, and they can write on anything that they're interested in history. And they've got some pretty school. I've got them doing an outline, so they've got a little bit of an outline done, but I don't think any writing's taken place. So mad dash for writing. I thank you all for watching, whether you're watching live or watching the recording. I wish you a very blessed day today, and find today. Here's a little tip, a little to do to leave you with today. Go and ask each of your kids, what's something new that you could be interested in? I'll leave you with that. What's something new you could be interested in? I'm going to go ask my boys that. Bye for now. Thanks, Candy.